Hey everybody, welcome to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo, episode number 49. My name is Gabe Estel, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Dennis Levi Leach and Jonathan Getz. How's it going, guys?
Amazing.
Rock and or roll.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, happy mid-spring training. So let's go ahead and kick it right off here. Unfortunately, I have to share some sad news first. My kick it right off was probably a little too enthusiastic to go right into some more somber news. But on a serious note, a couple weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago, the rock world lost a really great musician, probably one of its most technical musicians ever, in Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And obviously it was later deemed that Keith committed suicide. So, the rock world's been remembering him over the last couple weeks. And one thing, guys, that stood out to me, his death, received a lot of coverage. You've had a lot of classic rock kind of icons pass away, unfortunately, over the last few months. But I think to a lot of people that either weren't around in the 70s like us, even though I consider myself a fan of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or to people that didn't like them and they were never popular with critics. A lot of people just don't realize how freaking huge this band was. Like popular. How popular.
Oh, yeah. Worldwide, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were like right up there with, like, I'm not kidding, like like Led Zeppelin. Like when it was going down in the mid 70s.
Oh yeah, they were huge.
Yeah, I mean Zeppelin's stature has grown since then, and even though I like ELP a lot, I'll be the first to admit Zeppelin's catalog, holds up better.
Yeah.
And they're better songs per se, but they were a huge band, and I think a lot of people our age and a lot of people that maybe just dismiss their music don't know that, or they refuse
absolutely.
to acknowledge.
I would even go a step further to where it's not just ELP that suffers; it's almost all prog bands.
Yeah.
People, there's a definite age cutoff where it's like people under this age have no idea what prog rock was.
Even though some of the music that they're listening to now could have been influenced by it a little
absolutely.
bit. Yeah.
The Decemberists.
I would say that's going
example.
on a lot. I would say there's a lot of younger listeners that don't know the origins of their music.
Oh, I would say Jonathan mentioned the Decemberists. I'd even go the other end of the spectrum. I'd say System of a Down.
Yeah.
Ethan.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go the heavier route.
Yeah. I don't think that the Decemberists make the Crane Wife album without hearing Keith Emerson's work. And what he was able to do with the keys.
Oh yeah. Well, and one of the things I always liked about Keith Emerson, and Herbie Hancock was also this way as well, was they didn't know just how to play the keyboards. If the keyboard broke down, they could take it apart and fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that was like vital, obviously, he was using so much gear from Moog that was literally being made almost just for him.
Yeah.
And so it was like, if you want to learn it and tour with it and take it all over the world, somebody's going to have to figure out how to work on it because it's not going to last always.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. He didn't just know how to play it. He could work on it and fix it and take it apart.
He was a technician, as well. God, his rigs were insane. I mean, just like the dude had like the Starship Enterprise like surrounding him.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and all those wires and stuff as well. Like just was like doing all this on stage, and not to mention, his live performances were very intense. I mean, he would beat the shit out of that thing. He would literally beat the keyboard to get whatever he needed to get where he needed to be with that keyboard. He defined a sound of an era. Granted, it wasn't that long of an era, and its longevity is probably in question. Even though we just talked about some of the how its influence is stretched a little bit. Its popularity didn't have a lot of longevity.
No.
Commercial popularity. But from like that whole like 72, 73 to like 75, 76, prog was it, man. I mean, commercially.
Oh yeah, filling stadiums.
I mean, you had like playing Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia and selling the place out, like playing to like 75,000 people.
Oh yeah.
That's insane.
Surreal.
I don't even know if there are 75,000 people in the United States that like prog rock anymore. I mean, figuratively, I'm sure, but like, it's amazing that music can fall out of favor so quickly, like it did for bands of that genre.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that when the era's popularity declined, which would probably be like in the late 70s, you know?
Yeah.
When kind of punk came in and disco as well. Rush and Floyd carried on. Like their popularity remained, and in some degrees they have evolved their sound. Whereas like kind of like ELP, despite a resurgence in the 80s, yes, Jethro Tull, King Crimson, all of them were a little bit left behind as far as, and that's not saying one of those bands is better than the other. It's just, you know what I mean?
The commercial
Rush,
money left, and what little money people were going to pay for that genre went to bands like you said, like Rush, or even Yes.
Or Genesis reinventing themselves
completely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no longer a prog band at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it safe to say that maybe my perception is that prog bands were kind of the sabermetricians of rock music in the 70s? Like they were frowned upon by critics, like they're thinking too hard about all of this, just go out there and play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy, man. Yeah.
And that it speaks to, it's like the rise and fall of disco, and it's the rise and fall of prog. It starts out as something really organic and like jamming, and then by the end of the late 70s, people are analyzing all the songs so much, and the bands keep having to do crazier and crazier things, or incorporating all these weird time signatures, or it prog outgrew itself. It got too big for itself almost.
Yeah. You also had a strand to piggyback on what Levi said. Without growing itself, you had sort of a strand of pop prog too, like bands that weren't totally prog but incorporated some of it into their sound. And I'm thinking of bands like Styx, Kansas, Journey.
Oh yeah.
I think those bands had those bands had elements of prog, definitely. I like it all, that's just me. But yeah, I just think it's, even if you don't like it, even if a musician or if a critic or someone doesn't like it, I think it's too easily dismissed.
Yeah. You have to appreciate what they were going for. Yeah. And their achievement of what they were trying to accomplish. And you can't deny that they were, they excelled at achieving what they were trying to accomplish. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And you can't easily dismiss that.
Yeah. I mean, they blended classical music with rock and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a lot of, I mean, that was their background in classical music, and they infused that into rock and roll, It was a formula that certainly wasn't for everyone, and still isn't, I guess. But it was some challenging shit. It challenged the audience.
In retrospect, it's hard to imagine that it was popular. You know what I mean?
It is surprising.
It's like, wow, like the mainstream liked this at one time.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, at the height of their popularity, 1974, Yes put out an album with 3 songs on it. I mean, Relayer has 3 songs.
But I think part of it was maybe just the way it filled these arenas. Like, it was music that was not meant to be played, but it was very much accommodated by these arenas that were, that were filled by 20,000 people. Yeah. And so, people were anxious to maybe hear and see the sort of show that could be put on in such a venue.
Yeah, that might not go over as well like the Fillmore or the Whiskey, you know what I mean? Or you know, or whatever, a small club down the street.
Yeah. You don't want to go see The Wall at the corner bar.
No.
Exactly.
They were productions, you know, these affairs. They were definitely productions as well. So yeah, we'll miss Keith certainly, and
underrated.
Certainly thank him for all of his contributions, and he's remembered fondly by me, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So and also if anybody's looking for some good reads, before we close this out, in 1977, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, after having taking a couple years off, kind of really at the height of their popularity, which usually for most bands ends up being a mistake, even though, you know, everybody needs a break from the road. Their 1977 tour, if you ever find any literature on it, is a pretty fun read. It's just they tried to pull off this gigantic tour. I mean, with a full orchestra every night.
Ugh.
So you can imagine what the production costs were like for this tour.
Oh yeah.
And in the middle of it, they had to let the orchestra go just because the tour was just bleeding money.
Jeez.
And you know, their popularity was starting to wane a little bit. This is in like 77, 78. So, you know, they were still filling some arenas, but, you know, not as much as they were, you know, 4 years prior.
Yeah, that's tough.
So yeah, but the shows from what I read and a couple bootlegs that I've heard are awesome from those that tour, 77, 78, and then they called it quits by the end of the decade. So Anyway, well, rest in peace, Keith.
Yeah.
Now moving on to baseball, one of us has attended spring training 2016. Levi went and got his feet wet out in Arizona. So Levi, why don't you tell us about your trip to Mesa?
Yeah, man? I had a little cup of coffee, as they say. I got called up for one game. It was a blast. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Sloan Field in Mesa, Sloan Park, I should say, is amazing. It's really well done.
This is what, the second year it's been open?
Yeah, I believe it's the second year it was open, and whoever laid it out, there's not a bad view from wherever you walk around the stadium. And,
making up for Wrigley.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the food was excellent. They had really nice food options everywhere. One of the neat things that happened was I was walking around the park taking photos. And at the back of the park, under the outfield, there was these like Budweiser bleachers, and under that was this room that said the Ferguson Jenkins Foundation. And so I opened the door and went in there, and at the table was Gaylord Perry, Raleigh Fingers, Mudcat Grant, Lee Smith, and Bill Buckner.
Damn.
And so
that's a lot of wins and saves.
Yeah, right. Huh?
Right.
Yeah, those are some good lines across that table.
Oh, yeah. And I was just, for some reason, immediately drawn to Bill Buckner. And I have no idea why. I mean, he was a Cub, and I had some cards of his.
Does he still have a mustache?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And for some reason, I just was drawn to him. And part of me thinks it was maybe the empathy or sympathy I had for him still, because I think what happened to him was like awful in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
And because if you look at his numbers, the guy was a great baseball player.
Oh, yeah.
Like he was well above average. Mm-hmm. And you know, he's defined by that one play. And so for a donation of $20, you could talk to him, and he had some pictures there, and he signed a picture for me, and it was amazing. And then the next thing I knew, the game was over. And I was like, it was like the fastest 3 hours ever.
So what'd you talk about?
With Bill Buckner, nothing really. I just asked him how it was going, and he's like, oh, good. You know, he's like, you enjoying the game? And at the time, the Cubs were losing. So I was like, yeah, I wish they weren't losing. But, and, you know, we just kind of shot the shit for a second. Nothing exciting.
Yeah.
And so I would recommend to anyone, if you go to spring training, go to more than one game, because it wasn't enough. Like, it was just like a little taste, and I was like, I want more.
Right.
I could see how you could easily spend just a week or two out there, maybe going to a few games a week, and
well,
that would be a blast.
And in Arizona, all the parks are pretty close, too.
Within like an hour and a half of each other.
Yeah, Florida, they're a little further apart.
Right.
Yeah, it was a really, really good time, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. So
Were there a lot of people there?
Packed. Almost sold out for a Monday game. A Monday day game.
I think I saw where they average like 15,000, while spring training on average is about 8,000 per game, and the Cubs doubled that this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's still 8,000 is still quite a few people to watch just an exhibition game.
Yeah.
That's just in one designated area of the country. Well, two, Florida.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. And there was one point, like right when we got there and got to our seats, and we could, we sat down and we could see the view of the whole field and everybody. And it was like, does nobody work around here? Because it was just like full of old, young, little kids. It was just like, wow.
I would assume it's got to be a lot of vacationers, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
I would assume.
Yeah.
There were a lot of locals though there at the game, and they
part
said,
of the culture,
yeah, they said that even though that mainly, I forget how many teams play out there.
It's 15 in each state.
So
they've evened it up now.
Yeah. 15 teams play in Arizona, and the locals in Mesa were like, most of the people that live out here are Cubs fans.
Sure.
Like the retirees and all that. Mm-hmm. So
Diamondbacks haven't been around that long, as well.
I did see some Diamondback stickers on a couple cars. I saw like one guy wearing a Diamondbacks hat.
They're all like the 2001 champion bumper stickers,
right? They're kind of faded, feeling a little
lots
bit.
Of Levi was getting bootleg Travis Lee jerseys. All right. Remember, he was like their best player for a few years.
Was. Yeah.
Randy Johnson was their best player for a while.
Travis Lee, their offensive player.
Yeah.
So did you get up close and personal with any ball players out there on the field?
No, there wasn't an opportunity before the game because I think they cognitively do this. They all gathered right in between center and second. Yeah. So they're away, perfectly away from all the surrounding fans. Yeah. But I used my camera because it has a 50 times zoom. And so I was watching them work out and stuff, which is kind of creepy now that I say it out loud.
It's for the sport. It's for the love of the sport.
But yeah, I got a couple photos of Addison Russell stretching while he's talking to Chris Bryant. Stuff like that. And then after the game, it was so crazy. It was like a mass exodus of 15,000 plus people. And there was only really, I want to say there were 2 ways in and out of the stadium, so it kind of made for a little bit of a traffic jam. Yeah. So after the game, I didn't see anybody. It was boom, the players were gone. And the players actually, as they leave the game, they actually leave the game. So if you played the first couple of innings, you could see them walk down this one tunnel and then out and then get into a car and leave. So yeah.
I had heard that. I've never seen it, but I'd heard that as well. Once you get your at bats in or whatever you're supposed to do for that day, they'll take off.
Were going down to the clubhouse. They were literally going to a car waiting, and they would leave. Yeah, which I hadn't expected that either.
Yeah.
Huh. And even though you posted some photos of some of the graphic design around there, is really cool.
Around the park. That was struck me the most. Right away, as you walked in, there was one on the outside, and so I saw that and was like, wow. And then it just carried out through the whole park. I would say kind of a 1950s Art Deco-y
totally.
type thing.
Yeah, travel posters.
Whoever did that did a really good job on it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It sounds like they did a pretty good job with that whole facility.
Yeah, we need to. I can share some of those photos onto the Chew site. So
yeah, please do.
Everybody can see them at home.
Yeah.
Levi, I wanted to ask you: did you see this kid John Andrioli play for the Cubs?
No, I did not. But
he's been the star of spring training. So
yeah. I don't
know what will become of him, but
yeah. I've heard his name, but I honestly don't know hardly anything about the guy. Who I was excited to see was after Jake Arrieta pitched, a guy named Pierce Johnson pitched for us, and he ended up getting lit. So I was like,
He's working on his slider or something.
Well, and that's what they say.
Yeah.
Arrieta pitched like mid-season form.
Yeah.
He was ready.
I looked at the lineup card for that game, and you saw, I mean, like probably about 7 of the 9.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, 7 or yeah.
It was basically the easiest way. Like out of the starters, there were no Rizzo, no Schwarber.
Okay.
But then other than that, it was basically everybody else: Fowler, Hayward, Montero, Bryant, Russell, Soler. Which I don't know if Soler's going to end up making a lot of time out in the outfield, but we'll see. Hopefully he does.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at some spring training because I have to admit, like when the games first started, that first week, we're into about our third week of games now, probably, with still there's still like 15 games left to play or something.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
there's still a lot of games. The Cubs are not. I mean, if you want to just look at the lines, the Cubs are doing awful.
Yeah.
I think they've only won like 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, it's all over.
Right. Oh yeah, cashing it in.
Right. But and that's a good segue because how much do spring training stats matter? Probably not that much. But today I looked at because I've kind of only looked at my team, the White Sox, a little bit here and there, but a lot of days pass where I don't see the score. You know what I mean? I don't check it until a couple days later.
You just hope nobody gets hurt.
Yeah, exactly. But a couple things I did notice just kind of looking around the leaders. We've talked about him before, but dude, Nolan Arenado, who was awesome last year, dude, is tearing it up in spring. Yeah. Dude, he's hitting 629.
That's high school numbers.
Listen to this, dude. He's 22 for 35.
Holy cow!
Yeah, I mean, the guy was good last year, but I mean, in my opinion, like he's a future MVP, man. I mean, he's.
I wonder if people
last year, and he's the real deal.
I wonder if he's more likely to go in the first round of fantasy drafts this year. I mean, he's obviously already good, but because of that spring training, if he's more likely to go in the first round now, like if people
it could boost his cause more. I don't know. But yeah, out there in Colorado, Levi. Yeah, I mean, obviously the guy's already kind of a star, because he played so well last year. But he's like.
I think I'm going to go. I'm going to go to a game
good.
in August, I believe.
Yeah,
when the Cubs come to town, so I'll definitely keep an eye out for him.
Yeah,
that's crazy that he's hitting that well.
Yeah. I mean, he tore it up last year. It just he didn't get as much attention because he played for he plays for the Rockies.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's good, and this other guy. He's leading the league in runs. He's kind of a late bloomer. He plays for Seattle, named Sean O'Malley. He's already 28, and he's been playing in the minors since he was 18. But it kind of could be a good story. Like his OBP is like 5.538. He's 15 for 30. Leading the league in runs by a few runs. So, that's another one maybe to remember. Obviously, Arenado's already established, but Sean O'Malley. And then, I mean, record-wise, I know it's only a 20-game sample of spring training, and I've dismissed them during previous podcasts, but the Diamondbacks have only lost 4 games. They're 16-4, which
they're all home games.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
Okay, good take. But I don't know. The revamp could pay off sooner rather than later.
I think they will be better.
Yeah.
I want to say when I was there, we drove by their park, and I think they share it with the Mariners.
Yeah, a lot of the Arizona parks are shared.
Yeah, the Athletics took over the old Cubs one. We drove by it, and it
White Sox are in Glendale with the Dodgers. Okay. Just about every one of them shares in Arizona. In Florida, that's not really the case. There's only like maybe 1 or 2 that do, I think. So, yeah. But and then also this last thing, he already had a pretty good rookie year last year, but this Michael Franco for the Phillies, which Phillies don't have much else to cheer about.
No.
He's going to be a stud, man.
Yeah, he's a top prospect, right?
Yeah, I think he's number 1 now. Yeah, I think he is. So yeah, look out. Yeah. He's tearing it up too. He's got like, I don't know, I think he's got like 7 or 8 homers, something like that, which is pretty good for fewer than 20 games.
Right.
Excellent. Well, also one last thing about spring training. Jonathan had shared an article with Levi and I from the New York Daily News about the lack of night games in spring training. And it's just kind of always been this way, I guess. Mostly, spring training, they play, about 30 games, maybe 35 games. And only usually 3 or 4 of them are night games, right? I mean,
Levi, what time was your game that you went to?
It was 1:00 in the afternoon. Yeah.
So the typical game time, it sounds like.
So the question is, should they change it to accommodate the players?
Well, it is unusual how most of the regular season games are at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think too many.
And you're kind of making the... So, I mean... But to me, I've always been an old school day game guy because of the Cubs. But sure. I could see the whole, wanting to get into a schedule and a pattern and that type of a thing. But I think maybe they should play a few more. Maybe, get it closer to 40 or 50% night games.
Well, it mentioned that in that article, it mentioned the Yankees try to concentrate those night games near the end of spring training,
which totally makes sense.
Which is a good idea because it could help them transition to the season. Which you're going to have 80% of your games be at night. Yeah. So yeah, it is. I mean, a couple of reasons too, and I don't know if this factored into it or this is just kind of always the way it is always the way it's been. But maybe some of the reasons they don't change it. Like Levi had said, I think a lot of the people there are vacationers. I mean, I'm sure there are quite a few locals, but spring training is a destination for a lot of people. Yeah. So when you're on vacation,
that's what you're doing during the day.
It's right? No big deal to go to a game at 1:00 in the afternoon, and
you're drinking margaritas by 5.
Yeah, drinking margaritas, and you've got
there were people drunk by 2:00.
What's that?
There were people drunk, I think, by 2:00 at Slim Bar.
I'm sure that happens as well. So I mean, I think the fact that it probably caters to vacationers.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a seasonal economy, Also, competing with some other sports. You've got March Madness in the middle of March.
Yeah.
You've got the NBA and the NHL where playoff pictures are starting to emerge.
So yeah, sports fans have other shit to do at night.
They do, yeah. Well, and also, these are more recent advents, but a lot of people, I assume if you buy a baseball package, the spring training games are included, right? Maybe.
I believe so. Yeah, with MLB TV, yes, I believe so.
So I would assume more and more viewers could watch the games. On their DVRs at home if they wanted to record them, or maybe if they work in an office, they could stream the games, audio or visual, I guess. So there's probably a lot of factors that it doesn't hurt for them to be during the day. It would probably just help the players more if it were.
Yeah, I think that the idea of helping the players. And maybe I'm just not hip to the rhythms that they're on, the schedules that they're on. But really, I mean, it's asking too much for you to be ready to work at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. That's an issue. That's what we're... You're paid lots and lots and lots and lots of money, and you can't be at work by 1 p.m. I'm sorry, you might have to be there at 11 to stretch. So I think they need to get over it if they're whining about it. I think that they almost, in a way, they kind of owe it to these fan bases that are supporting them to watch them practice and paying money to watch them practice, that they accommodate them with these day games that are certainly more festive. I'm sure anybody, most people will tell you that with the right weather conditions, they would much rather go to a day game than a night game. It's nice to have something to do after the game, like go out to eat.
I'll admit, as a fan, just even being there one day, like, you could totally fall into that routine. Like, hey, get up at like 9 or 10, maybe go for a walk, have some breakfast, go to the ballpark, watch the game, be back home by like 5 or 6, have some dinner, get up, do it all again tomorrow. I'm retired. Let's do it.
And I get in the regular season, this is difficult, a day game after a night game. Some guys don't do that, and like Barry Bonds didn't do that in his final years, and that's kind of different because that's in the middle of the grind.
There's more travel,
a lot of traveling. And, it's like game 112 out of 162. Okay, yeah, I kind of get it. But here we're just talking about practice where you're only going to play for 2 innings anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I'm not usually a proponent of tradition for tradition's sake. Actually, I'm usually antithetical to that. But in this case, I think day games are totally the right way to go for spring training.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. So anyway, anything else, guys? I don't know.
No.
Anything like big news in the White Sox this week there, Gabe?
I haven't heard anything. No. So
pretty quiet.
Yeah, pretty quiet. Pretty quiet spring. So
okay, good.
I guess on that note, everybody, want to remind you to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RockInChew. That's Rock as in Nolan Arenado, who's gonna be good. You can follow us on Facebook as well. Like our page, please, and then you can learn everything about rock and roll Shin-Soo Chew, past, present, and future, at rockchew.com. That's rockchew.com. Next time, we will see you for episode number 50.
Holy shit.
We made
it's getting
it,
real.
Kids. All right. You've come a long way, baby. So anyway, until next time, we'll see ya. Enjoy the rest of spring training. Take care.
Peace.